Today, we become legends.
Patch 10.6 brings a ton of game-wide and specific changes to Smite, so here's a quick patch day rundown of everything that's changed so you can hop right into some games. Quickly before we start though, I just wanted to mention that there's a gem sale going on at my Nexus creator link right now. Gems are up to 33% off, so if you want to cop some cheap gems while they're on sale, head over there and pick them up from my store. I get a little kickback and it costs you nothing extra. Thanks. First up, skins and events. There's a new event in 10.6 called the Color Forge event. Each skin in this event can be dyed in the match lobby to change the base color scheme of the skin. This event has skins for Ra, Cthulhu and Cupid so far, with more coming in future patches. The buy all reward for this event is the tier 5 Fenrir skin Alpha Pack, which also has the same dye mechanics. There's also a new battle pass in 10.6 with skins for King Arthur, Vulcan, Loki and Chernobog, among the other usual rewards for completing a pass. And finally, Uller and Sol have skins in the Independence chest. RuneScape capes and dyes can now be changed and equipped in the God skin selection page on the main menu. Smite is also now supported on Linux systems in 10.6. Soul Surges are a new mechanic that impacts all game modes in Smite. When a god dies, they create a soul area that slowly expands. In this area, all gods gain movement speed and a burn effect on basic attacks and abilities to low health enemies. Any additional deaths anywhere on the map will extend the duration, regardless of if they're in the Soul Surge. Dying inside a Soul Surge reduces your respawn timer by 50% in all modes except Conquest, so if you're gonna die in a casual mode, try and be inside that area. The Soul Surge will also spawn spirit minions that attack nearby gods and reward XP and gold when killed, and finally, there's a global cooldown after a Soul Surge so another one can't spawn for a while. Shutdown rewards have been overall decreased this patch. There will be a ranked soft reset as well, meaning the higher MMR you are, the more you'll go down. It's not a complete hard reset though, so it won't be everyone at the same level. Cthulhu and Shiva have been removed from the Assault healer pool, and Ishel is now a tier 2 instead of tier 3 healer. Conquest has had a major art overhaul to make the map look darker and themed around the Season of Souls. This includes some map geometry changes as well, specifically around mid lane. There are also two new Conquest specific mechanics added in 10.6. The first is the Stygian Beacon, which sits on the duo side of mid lane and is basically a capture point. You need more friendly gods in the area than enemy gods to slowly capture it. The larger your god advantage, the faster it caps. This means it's theoretically doable with just one friendly god sitting in the area, but it will be heavily contested due to its central location and rewards that include a permanent 1% movement speed boost, gold and XP, as well as 5% bonus structure damage to the team that claims it. The beacon spawns 3 times per match, so this buff can stack up to 3 times for 3% movement speed and 15% structure damage. Beacon initially spawns at 12 minutes in and then 6 minutes after it's captured, so be ready to contest it at around 12, 18 and 24 minutes give or take, depending on how long it takes to capture. After being taken all 3 times, the beacon will deactivate for the rest of the match and introduce the second new Conquest mechanic in 10.6, the Unleashed Titans. No matter who captured the beacon or how many times, after 3 the Titans will begin to match up the lane with the most remaining structure health. This includes both team structures. The Titans will meet somewhere in the middle of their respective lane and battle it out. The surviving Titan of the fight will continue to push down the lane similar to a Slash Juggernaut and allow the team to take down structures in that lane more easily. Do not ignore this when it happens. You can easily lose towers and phoenixes if you don't show up to this event. After the Unleashed Titans die, they teleport back to the base at normal health. That's it for the major gameplay mechanic changes, but there are a lot of god and item changes this patch too. Firstly, we have 6 new glyphs on 3 existing items, all aimed at tanks. Relic Dagger gets Bewitched Dagger, which inherits Witchblade's old passive, reducing enemy attack speed in an aura around you, and Eldritch Dagger, which grants a 15% protection boost and the ability to see wards for 10 seconds when you use a relic. Runeforged Hammer gets Flameforged Hammer, which in addition to the normal Runeforged damage boost in the area, will also burn enemies in that area for damage based on your total protections. This burn persists for 3 seconds after the enemy leaves the area as well. And Runebreaking Hammer is the second one, which creates a shockwave instead of an area when you land a CC. This shockwave does the same 10% damage boost, but also reduces enemy damage output by 10% as well, and this lasts for 3 seconds. And finally, Pridwin is the last item getting glyphs in this update, and definitely the most exciting one. Glorious Pridwin duplicates the explosion damage of normal Pridwin, meaning you get an explosion as you gain the shield after ulting, as well as the normal explosion after the shield depletes, doubling the damage potential of the item. Reverent Pridwin is sort of the opposite, roughly doubling the shield's health, but you still only get 1 damage burst. In a similar vein to 10.3's healing and lifesteal reduction, 10.6 is introducing a power, health, and protections reduction across nearly every item in the game. Power is being reduced by roughly 30%, while health and protections are being reduced by roughly 15%. This is to encourage tankiness and lengthen the time to kill a little bit. I won't be going over every individual change in this video as it's meant to be a quick recap, but just note that if you go in game and see that an item has way less stats than before, it's not because that item specifically took a huge nerf. All items got roughly the same treatment in this patch, 30% for power, 15% for health and procs. The percent penetration nerfs from 10.5 have been reverted this patch. It's back to having 10% and 20% on items with a 40% cap, instead of 8% and 16% with a 32% cap. On to god changes though, there are a lot this patch, but not as many with items and they're less generic, so I will cover each one individually here. For nerfs, 6 of the top performers in the meta were hit. Aphrodite's movement speed on Kiss was taken down, Hachiman's bonus damage on Eagle Eye was nerfed, Hell's self and ally movement speed on Inspire as well, Tia's passive power and protections from stance change, Vamana's ultimate duration was hit pretty heavily, and finally, Yamoja's Riptide movement speed for allies was nerfed as well. Moving on to the buffs though, Achilles' execute threshold on his ultimate was increased from 30% to 35%. Anher's base attack speed and slow on shifting stance were buffed. Apollo's mez duration on his 2 and movement speed buff and debuff on his dash were increased. Artemis gets more power scaling and a lower cooldown on her 3 to help with lane clear and poke. Bacchus' 3 cooldown was reduced by 2 seconds. Bastet cats now have 3 hit points instead of 2. Chiron's 1 CC immunity now lasts longer. Cleaner can now go into walls more often and take less damage while inside them. Danzaburo's rocket stun duration now scales with level up to 1.4 seconds instead of just 1 second flat. Discordia's 2 cooldown was reduced by 2 seconds. Erlang Shen gets some big changes this patch. His passive max HP damage from the dog was increased, along with the root duration on his 3 and the damage mitigation on his ultimate. Iset gets more power scaling on Wingust. Fafnir gets probably the biggest buff of the patch in my opinion, with his dragon form now lasting up to 20 seconds longer based on rank. Is now a full minute in dragon form at rank 5. Geb gets a longer duration on his stone shield and more base damage on his ult. Huyi's 1 gets more base damage. Ishel's ultimate gets more base damage and scaling per tick. Yanis' percent pen on the ultimate was increased to match the reverted percent pen nerfs. It now gives 20% at rank 5 instead of 16% before. Kukulkan's slipstream gets a reduced cooldown. Kuzumbo gets more damage reflect on his 2 and more damage mitigation in his ultimate. Any non-conquest buffs have also been removed from Kuzumbo. Lancelot gets more movement speed and basic attack damage reduction from his passive, as well as a scaling buff to his 1. Loki's decoy now lasts a bit longer and his 3 has more base damage. Medusa's 1 now gives more attack speed and has a higher base damage per shot. Mulan's 2 and 3 both get 1 second off their cooldowns. Poseidon now gains attack speed when his 2 is active. ADC Postgang rise up. Raz 3 gives more protections and power for those inside it. Raijin's 2 does more damage to the initial target, but the bounced targets are unaffected. Raven gets more shield health on his passive and a buff to the cooldown of his 3. Set gets increased dash damage on his clones and a reduced cooldown on his 3 to spawn more clones. Shiva gets more regen and more regen debuffs from his passive, as well as cooldown reduction to his ultimate. Skadi gets more power scaling on her ultimate. Sobek gets reduced cooldowns for all 3 of his basic abilities. Sun Wukong's passive now triggers at 60% health instead of 50%. Tsukuyomi's Caltrops now slow more. Ula gets more passive attack speed in bow stance and lifesteal in axe stance. Vulcan's turret got a huge cooldown decrease from 14 seconds down to 10. Jingchen's 2 now roots for longer. And finally, Zhonghui now gains more protections from the demons in his bag. Phew, that was a lot of changes, but hopefully this overview condensed the info fairly well for you and you're now ready to hop into some games on the new patch. Catch you guys in another one later on. Have a great day, and peace out, you nerds.